What is a communications clause and how important is it in your wedding planning contract? Hello, my friends, and welcome back. My name is Andrea Eppolito. I am a luxury wedding planner based in Las Vegas, and we come together here celebrating life luxury and above all else, love. If this is your first time meeting me, welcome. Thrilled to have you here. Please hit the subscribe button. We come together discussing all things weddings, events, lifestyle, beauty. It is one of my favorite places to hang out online. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. So let's start with this. If you know me, if you've been here for a while, you know that growing up, I really wanted to be a lawyer. I love the law. I love reading contracts. It's something that really excites me. And even my business coach, Sean Lowe, he is a former lawyer. And as Sean likes to say, your contract is your business speaking for you. So when we worked together to develop my contract, one of the most important clauses that we created was a communications clause. And I believe in mutuality, meaning I believe that what is good for the client should be good for the planner and vice versa. I believe that the contract should be built, written, and set up so that it protects everyone and that it also protects the work. So let me talk to you about what exactly my communications clause says, how it works in terms of being protective, and what it is that I suggest you look for. So we will start with this. I am not actually an attorney as much as I love the law. This is not legal advice. And I thought about actually reading to you directly from my contract. And then I thought, no, I want you to be able to process the information. I want you to understand it. And then it's really important that you go and speak to an actual attorney in your area so that the clause is written properly. All right, let's get into it and let's talk about communications. So the first thing that my communications clause says is that communication between us, between myself and the client, between myself and the partners and the vendors, and between the client and the vendors will always be conducted in a very professional and respectful manner. Now, some people have referred to this as a bridezilla clause. I hate that term. I'm very fortunate I don't have to deal with that quite too often. But I personally think it's very important to make sure that we start out with a foundation of respect. Nobody's going to yell, nobody's going to scream, nobody's going to curse, we're not going to call each other names. The minute that happens, everything stops because the contract says everything will be handled in a respectful, professional manner. The second thing my communication clause says is that all communication, written and verbal, any request for communication will be responded to within 48 hours and or 2 business days. In other words, if you send me a text message at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night and I am actually doing a wedding, I may actually just acknowledge, hey, I got your text, I'll talk to you Monday, but you cannot expect me to answer you right then and there. I create a grace period that allows me to make a living, that allows me to have a life, that allows me to service my clients, but that also protects the integrity of what it is that I'm doing with this specific client. Now, because I believe in mutuality, the same applies for the client communicating back with me. If I make a request, if I call a client, if I email them, if I send them a text message and say, hey, I really need to talk to you for whatever reason it is, the expectation is that they too will respond to me within 48 hours, 2 business days. This leads us into what I believe has been the most important clause in my contract for the last 5 years. This leads us into a concept of materiality, a material decision. Now, what does that mean? In layman's terms, a material decision or a material action is something that is absolutely necessary in order to move the process forward. It is essential to the success of the overall event. And so what my contract says is that if I, Andrea Eppolito Events, have an outreach to you, if I ask you for a material decision, materiality defined by me, in other words, as the professional, as the expert in the room, I decide what is essential. I decide what is the most important thing for us to be working on. If I ask you for a material decision, including a signature on a vendor contract or payments that need to be made, you as the client are required to give me that decision or to take that action within 48 hours. If you do not, if you fail to meet the communication standard and the materiality, then at my discretion, you understand that all work will be paused, everything will stop, and I have the right to terminate our agreement with no future rights or responsibilities attributed to either side. So this is very legal, and I want to make sure that you understand it. And so I'm going to give you a real world example. Many years ago, I had a client, and I used to look at my husband and say, oh my God, they are perfect. They are wonderful. Everything about them is fantastic. The way we communicate, the way we vibe, the way we see the world, everything is going so well. I cannot believe that I am so fortunate to be working with such wonderful people. And it was until we got to about the 90-day point. And at around the 90-day point, I had material decisions that needed to be made. I had final calls that needed to be answered. And we had payments to vendors that absolutely were required. And when I reached out to the clients, they were slow getting back to me. And so I was like, hey, this is super important. We really need to do this because if we don't make these decisions, if we don't make these payments, the pieces that we're creating for your wedding do not have an opportunity to go into production, and we might not have them in time. And so I really need this from you. And they dragged. And I reached out to them again 2 days later. I was like, just want to make sure this is super important. This is a really big deal. And then I referenced this is material decision in our contract. It's very important. I need you to get back to me. They dragged. So now I have, at my own discretion, given them 2 days of latitude, another 2 days of latitude. At the end of the week, I called, I texted, and I sent them an email. And I said, hey, I just need to be very, very clear. You're in breach of contract. You have not made these decisions. You have not done the things needed in order to move this forward. And if I don't hear from you by the end of the day, I'm going to suspend and pause all things, all production, all activity. And if I don't hear from you within 2 days, then this event, essentially, with me at least, is going to be canceled. I need to hear from you. Immediately, I get a call back. It was not a good call. It was not a fun call. They were very upset, and I understand that. But also, I was very upset. I was very concerned, and everything I was doing was in furtherance of the goal. It was in furtherance of the work. And I said, these are hard conversations to have. These are hard decisions to make. But just because they're hard doesn't mean we don't do them. Because if you don't make these decisions, if you don't pay these bills, if you don't do the things that we agreed we were going to do together, then these items aren't going to be ready. You are jeopardizing the entire success of your wedding. And that puts my business, that puts my reputation, that puts my partners and my vendors in jeopardy. Quite simply, I can't have that. And so we had the hard conversation. Within 24 hours, all decisions were made, all payments were made. And when we opened the door to the wedding, every single thing, every custom item that we had dreamt about, designed, and conceived of was completely produced, beautifully presented, and the wedding went off without a hitch. So that explains communication. It explains materiality. It talks about the fact that we're going to be respectful, that we're going to have an open line of communication. And that is why it is so important, because wedding planning is a full contact sport. Nobody exists in a bubble. The ability to be successful for our clients means that we owe them information. We owe them outreach. We owe them calls, texts, and emails. But at the same time, our clients are required to actively participate and to move the success of the event forward by making material decisions. So that is my communication clause that talks about respect, timeline, and materiality. I hope you have found this helpful. I hope that it's something you consider putting into your own contract. If you have any questions for me about contracts, wedding plannings, how I deal with difficult clients or difficult conversations, how I design, please let me know. There's a link below. It is www.andreaeppolito.com/ask. I answer all of my questions to the best of my ability here because I love this industry. I love the work and I love seeing us all get better. So until next time, thank you so much for spending your day with me, celebrating life luxury and above all else love. We'll talk again soon.